Y'all know who it is, man. Good Doc back again, once again. Let's lock in. Ladies and gentlemen, there's been something that has been said about foreigners and Filipinas that I feel I need to address. And y'all know we're going to deep dive this bitch as much as we can today. All right? There has been this thought process that foreigners who date Filipinas are only getting the leftovers. Right? Now, that could be taken a multitude of different ways, but ladies and gentlemen, let me go ahead and give you and provide the context for what I believe, and just my opinion, constitutes leftovers. If we look at it as food, from the food perspective, basically what leftovers is the food that is left over on your plate once you have had your fill. Once your stomach is full, you good to go, you're satisfied, that's the food that's left over. So if I am to juxtapose and or take that particular context in moving into this particular topic of conversation, basically what I believe people are trying to say is that the women that foreigners date are none other than the women that are left over by the Filipino men, aka the women that Filipino guys don't want. Now, I don't believe that to be true, but there are a lot of people that would say that it is. So that's why I want to take the time and some of my effort and energy to go ahead and at least talk about it from my perspective and my understanding of it. And, we could jump through hoops and we could figure this out together. That's what the comment section is for. And I'll be glad to hear what you guys got to say. Now, when we talk about leftovers, although it may be unfathomable for a lot of people to believe, there are some Filipinas that don't necessarily care to date Filipino men. No different than there are a lot of us foreigners from the Western world that don't necessarily care to date women in the West. Now, if you think about it from the backstory and the origin of the entire situation, you probably would have had to either date and or have seen experiences that have completely turned you off of your own kind. Western women for us, Filipino guys for the Filipino. So, in some capacity, you probably have had prior relationships with your own before coming to the conclusion that you no longer wish to date your own. And if that's the case, I wouldn't necessarily say that these women are the leftover women that that Filipino guys don't want, but more or less, these are the girls that kind of just felt as though these guys just aren't the ones for me, right? After dating them prior. Now, to call a Filipino leftover, I think that's kind of disrespectful, and I never want anybody to take it in a disrespectful way when I say it, but we do have to think about it as it's being presented, and the way it's being presented, and the way that it's being said. Foreigners, when you come to the Philippines, I have to admit, to an extent, I could see how some people would probably believe that foreigners are only getting the leftover women. And again, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and the good doc doesn't have it all his damn self. So I'm going to be the first and the last to say that I am not the perfect judgment of what beauty is or what beauty standards is for somebody else. Because again, what you find to be attractive may be different than me, and vice versa from somebody else. But I have seen some foreigners with Filipinas that I would probably see how and why you would see some Filipino guys or Filipinos in general laughing at some of these guys and some of the women that they choose to be with, right? But ultimately, what it comes down to is, do you really give a shit? Or do you even care what somebody else thinks about who you're actually with? Because only when you care or give a shit about the thought process and or what other people have to say about your relationship is the only time that I believe that you allow yourself to be manipulated by the thoughts of others, right? Only you can sit there and allow somebody to basically say that the young lady that you're with is somebody that the Filipino guys don't want to be with. Now, if you think about it in my particular perspective, I would consider that a blessing, right? If the girl that I'm with is somebody that Filipino guys don't want, how is that a bad thing to me? You see, because if you tell me that a young lady is a leftover, unfortunately, I'm going to look at it from the perspective of chewed up, spit out, from the food perspective, but used and abused and dealt with by their own before they're no longer considered to be worthy, to an extent, to be with Filipino guys anymore, or Filipino guys have completely shunned themselves away from them, right? Now, that can come again if we're deep diving in a multitude of different perspectives. What would be considered chewed up and spit out in this particular scenario? Could be Filipina that has kids. Now, this is where things get interesting for me, because you will see a lot of foreigners dating Filipinas that have kids already, as opposed to dating ones that do not have kids already. So, would you say that these guys are dating leftovers? You see where this particular situation could take a completely different trajectory when we're talking about what constitutes as leftovers, or what constitutes as somebody dating something that Filipino guys no longer want, right? So when I have these conversations, when I talk about this, guys, I'm just doing a brain dump. I'm just getting everything that I have in my mind out through the mouth so that y'all can hear it and y'all can process it and you can do with it what you choose to do, right? But personally, if a Filipina is just a young lady who has dated Filipino guys before me, should I be shocked? Absolutely not. If she's had sex with a Filipino guy before me, should I be shocked? Absolutely not. But just because she had sex with a Filipino guy, does that make her a leftover? No. Because then that would mean that if we were out here killing it in the West, or dealing with women in the West, and we were running through women in the West, would we be the leftovers of the guys that would be considered the non-chosen type? Or what do they call the word? What's that word? It's not non-chosen. Damn, Doc is drawing a blank. See, I was getting it and then I fucked it up. When you're not the chosen ones, or you're not the guy that women typically choose in the West, right? Would that mean that we are leftovers too? So is it basically like I'm a leftover, she's a leftover, so we gonna be leftovers together? You feel me? You see, there's so many different ways that we could take this topic of conversation, and this is why I like what we do here, right? Because again, what constitutes leftovers is purely completely up to what you believe is a leftover. If you really have a genuine good communication, contact, and you feel good about the connection that you have with your young lady, does it really matter? If somebody was like, hey, that's just somebody's leftover. Nah, nobody give a fuck at that point. Because at that point, some guys are like, I'm happy that y'all left her behind because she found me. But then again, let's get a little bit deeper. And I'm only going to throw this little caveat in there, this little jab real quick, because this is where it goes for me. You know me. But if a Filipina gets with a foreigner, a successful foreigner, or a guy that can bring her back to the United States, how can she be a leftover when she's probably in the process of leveling up? Probably doing a whole lot better with the foreigner guy than she would probably do with the Filipino guy. Huh? Anybody? Come on now. Anybody? How is she a leftover? Or if she was a leftover, she gets with a foreigner, probably gets to the United States, or, dates him or marries him, has kids with him, and lives a far better life than she is with the foreigner guy than she probably would have been with the Filipino guy. How exactly is she getting left over and or left behind if the foreigner, in the process, I hope she's not upgrading her more than she needs to, but she seems to be doing better with the foreigner guy than she would be with the Filipino guy. Riddle me that, Batman. Riddle me that. Hey, that's my time, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to float on this one anymore. Appreciate y'all locking in, man. You know what it is, man. Time for the get out to go and get the getting. With that being said, Good Doc is officially out. At least nako paalam, which means I am going now. Bye-bye. As always, love you guys. Sincerely do. Makita. Mabuhay. Likes, subscribe, comment section below, description box, all my good shit. Doc is out. Peace.